In 2003, a Vatican insider warned the future of bioethics could divide the Church itself. Now, 2 decades later, that warning feels eerily prophetic. Pope Leo XIV has stunned the Catholic world by appointing Monsignor Renzo Pegoraro, a physician priest once criticized for his openness to controversial end-of-life debates, as the new president of the Pontifical Academy for Life. Why him? Why now? And why did the Vatican stay silent about the internal backlash? We're counting down 10 powerful truths behind this historic appointment, truths that could redefine Catholic doctrine on abortion, assisted suicide, IVF, and even AI. Number 6 will leave you stunned. Let's begin with number 1. Number 1, the Vatican's hidden think tank. What is the Pontifical Academy for Life? It's not just a title, it's a battleground. It may sound like just another Vatican office, but behind its Latin name lies one of the most fiercely contested arenas in the Catholic Church. Why would Pope Leo XIV shake up this powerful institution now? And what does it reveal about the future of church teaching on the most divisive issues of our time? Founded in 1994 by Pope St. John Paul II and the legendary French geneticist Jérôme Lejeune, the man who discovered the genetic cause of Down syndrome, the Pontifical Academy for Life was never meant to be neutral. It was created as a theological firewall to uphold the sanctity of life from conception to natural death. From its earliest days, it stood firmly against abortion, euthanasia, genetic engineering, and in vitro fertilization, technologies and trends that the Church viewed not as progress, but as peril. Lejeune, a devout Catholic and tireless defender of children with disabilities, once said, "The enemies of life are now working not only in laboratories, but in legislatures." That urgency shaped the Academy's mission to serve as the intellectual and moral compass for the Church amid rising biomedical threats. For over 2 decades, it fulfilled that mission, advising popes, issuing declarations, and drawing a firm ethical line in the sand. But in recent years, that line began to blur. Under leadership shifts and controversial appointments, some began to question whether the Academy still stood for what it once did. Pro-life leaders were replaced by academics with more nuanced, or ambiguous, positions on assisted suicide and reproductive technology. Internal debates grew, external critics multiplied, and faithful Catholics began asking, is the Academy still fighting for life, or redefining it? And that's what makes Monsignor Renzo Pegoraro's appointment so explosive. Because the question isn't just who he is, it's what the Academy will become under his watch. Let's look closer in number 2. Number 2, meet the man behind the appointment, Pegoraro's unlikely journey. From surgery to the sanctuary, this priest's path is anything but ordinary. Before he ever wore a Roman collar, Renzo Pegoraro wore a white lab coat. He didn't start as a theologian, but as a medical doctor, trained in the science of saving lives. What drives a surgeon to trade the scalpel for the sacraments? And how did that decision set the stage for one of the most consequential Vatican appointments in decades? Emotional plus factual narrative, 2 minutes worth. Born in 1959 in Padua, one of Italy's oldest university cities, Pegoraro pursued medicine with the precision and passion of a man on a mission. But beneath the scientific rigor, a deeper calling stirred. After completing his degree in medicine and surgery, Pegoraro made a radical decision to leave behind a clinical future and enter the seminary. In 1989, he was ordained a Catholic priest. His dual vocations, physician and priest, would define the rest of his life. Pegoraro didn't stop at ordination. He earned a licentiate in moral theology at the Alfonsian Academy in Rome and a postgraduate diploma in bioethics from the University of Leuven in Belgium. He wasn't content to preach about life, he wanted to understand it, scientifically and ethically, from the beginning to the end. Over the years, he built a formidable academic resume. As Chancellor of the Pontifical Academy for Life since 2001, he worked behind the scenes, shaping policy, leading research, and advising on bioethical challenges. But with deep academic roots came complex moral landscapes. Pegoraro's writings occasionally drew criticism for their perceived ambiguity on issues like end-of-life care and new reproductive technologies. Supporters call him nuanced. Critics call him uncertain. Either way, his legacy is anything but neutral. So why did Pope Leo choose a man whose past raises as many questions as answers? To uncover that, we turn to number 3. Number 3, Pegoraro the Professor, Faith Meets Science. What happens when you teach ethics inside a children's hospital? Picture this, a Catholic priest walking the bright, sterile corridors of a pediatric hospital, not to administer last rites, but to teach bioethics to future nurses and doctors. This is Renzo Pegoraro's world, where whiteboards and ward rounds overlap, and every decision holds eternal weight. Can a man trained in both theology and medicine truly serve two masters, reason and revelation, without betraying either? Pegoraro's unique mission didn't stop with his ordination or research. He became a bridge between worlds, teaching nursing ethics and bioethics at the University of Padua and at pediatric hospitals, where life's fragility is heartbreakingly tangible. Imagine lecturing young clinicians not only on how to treat suffering, but why it matters, morally, spiritually, and eternally. His career flourished in both academic and clinical settings, yet Pegoraro always brought a distinctly Catholic lens to questions many find too complex or controversial. How do you counsel a terminally ill child's family? What does informed consent mean when the patient can't yet speak? His work brought theology into the real world, into ICUs, research labs, and classrooms. That commitment led to broader leadership. Pegoraro was elected president of the European Association of Centers of Medical Ethics, bringing Catholic insight into dialogue with Europe's top secular ethicists. While some applauded his courage, others questioned whether his faith made full neutrality impossible. So, is Pegoraro the perfect bridge, or a fault line in the making? With his new role, that question just got much more urgent. And that brings us to number 4. Number 4, the shadow of Paglia, a controversial legacy. What happens when a right-hand man becomes the face of the future? In every power shift, there's an echo of the past. And in the Vatican, echoes linger. As Renzo Pegoraro steps into the spotlight as president of the Pontifical Academy for life, he inherits not just an office, but a legacy clouded by moral firestorms. Was Pegoraro a quiet reformer waiting for his moment, or a silent partner in controversy? For over a decade, Pegoraro served as chancellor under Archbishop Vincenzo Paglia, the Academy's outgoing president whose leadership drew both applause and alarm. Paglia's tenure was marked by provocative decisions, including figures with pro-choice views in Academy events, pushing for controversial theological interpretations, and publicly questioning church doctrine on end-of-life issues. Critics called it scandal, supporters called it dialogue. Pegoraro, by contrast, kept a lower profile. Dutiful, methodical, and, to some, overly accommodating. Was he merely following orders, or did he quietly shape the direction of the Academy from within? That's the question now surfacing across Catholic circles. Because while Paglia often held the microphone, Pegoraro held the books, the logistics, and often the pen behind the scenes. In Catholic tradition, the role of a chancellor isn't passive, it's canonical. It involves authentication of acts, protection of doctrine, and moral responsibility. So now, as he takes the helm, observers are asking, did Pegoraro dissent in private while remaining loyal in public? Or was his silence a signal of shared vision? With Paglia gone, the Academy is poised for either a course correction or continuity under a calmer tone. The Church now turns to Pegoraro with one burning question: will he rewrite the legacy, or repeat it? Which leads us to number 5. Number 5, 2 moments that shook the faithful. Did Pegoraro cross a line, twice? What happens when a man entrusted with life's sacredness publicly questions the absolutes? Monsignor Renzo Pegoraro, now the Vatican's leading voice on bioethics, has already sent tremors through the Church, not once, but twice. Were his controversial remarks flashes of theological courage, or cracks in the Church's moral armor? Emotional plus factual narrative, 2 minutes worth. In 2022, during a conference on global health policy, Pegoraro addressed the thorny issue of contraception. He acknowledged that, in certain medical contexts, such as protecting a woman's life or preventing disease, pastoral discernment might allow room for exceptions. The comment ignited debate. Defenders hailed it as nuanced moral theology. Critics saw it as soft-peddling a truth long held non-negotiable. Then came a second jolt, more subtle, yet more unsettling. In discussing end-of-life ethics, Pegoraro drew a line between euthanasia and assisted suicide, cautiously suggesting that, if the Church must enter these difficult dialogues, assisted suicide, where the patient retains agency, might pose a lesser moral threat. It was not approval, but it was not a firm no, either. For many faithful Catholics, these weren't theoretical musings. These are the deepest questions of human life: when it begins, when it ends, and who gets to decide. The Catechism teaches that life is sacred from conception to natural death. Pegoraro's tone of flexibility stirred fears. Was the ground shifting? Scripture reminds us in Ecclesiastes, there is a time to be silent and a time to speak. Pegoraro chose to speak. The question now is whether his words were prophetic or premature. He now leads an institution where doctrine meets dilemma. So as Pegoraro sets the tone for the future of the Academy, we must ask, will he clarify his stance or double down? That brings us to number 6. Number 6, the critics speak, the battle for Catholic truth. A rising storm within the Church. Tensions rise as a chorus of voices warn the faithful. The Church stands at a crossroads more perilous than ever before. Dr. Thomas Ward, a staunch Catholic ethicist, has emerged as one of the most vocal critics of Monsignor Pegoraro's recent remarks and leadership. Is the Church quietly slipping into moral decline, or is this the moment for renewed vigilance and hope? Dr. Ward paints a grim picture, warning that the subtle shifts in tone from the Vatican risk opening the floodgates to a culture of death, a phrase heavy with meaning for Catholics. This culture, he argues, is marked by relativism, where sacred truths about life and dignity are diluted, threatening the foundation of families and communities worldwide. For Ward and many others, the Church's mission is clear: defend the gospel of life, a radiant call to protect every human being from conception to natural death. He stresses that Catholic families feel the pressure most acutely, caught between secular forces that devalue life and a Church that must decisively reaffirm its teachings. Ward's voice echoes the words of St. John Paul II, who exhorted the faithful to be vigilant in defending life amid growing ethical confusion. This moment isn't just about doctrine, it's about the soul of the Church and its witness in the world. Will Catholic leaders stand firm against moral compromise? Or will the Church's credibility, and the faith of millions, be shaken? As the battle lines form and voices grow louder, the next chapter in this unfolding drama brings us to the response from the Vatican itself. What will Monsignor Pegoraro say next? Stay tuned for number 7. Number 7, Legacy versus Loyalty. Was Pegoraro ever really silent? Silence isn't always complicity, or is it? What does it mean when a key figure keeps quiet amid controversy? Was Monsignor Renzo Pegoraro merely a bystander during Archbishop Paglia's stormy presidency, or did his silence mask a deeper, more strategic involvement? Did Pegoraro's quiet approach shield him from criticism, or was it a calculated diplomacy aimed at guiding the Church from within? And now that he leads, will he continue to steer subtly, or speak boldly? During Paglia's tenure, marked by scandal and contentious decisions, Pegoraro stood largely silent in public, raising questions about his true role. Some observers interpret this as cautious loyalty, a way to preserve unity in a fragile institution. Others wonder if his silence implied tacit approval or even discreet influence behind the scenes. The Church, after all, is no stranger to complex internal dynamics where power and prudence often intermingle. In Catholic tradition, silence can be a form of wisdom or complicity, depending on the heart behind it. Scripture reminds believers in Proverbs 17 verse 28, even a fool who keeps silent is considered wise. Could Pegoraro's silence have been a measured strategy rooted in faith and discernment? Or does it risk being seen as a failure to defend timeless truths? Now, with the mantle of leadership firmly on his shoulders, the eyes of the faithful are fixed on him. How he chooses to lead will either rewrite the narrative of his past or confirm suspicions. Will he break the silence with clarity and conviction, or continue the subtle diplomacy that defined his previous years? The coming months promise answers, and challenges that could reshape the Church's path. What lies ahead for Pegoraro and the Pontifical Academy for life? Don't miss number 8. Number 8. Continuity or course correction. What Pope Leo XIV might be signaling? New Pope, familiar course, or a hidden reset? With the election of Pope Leo XIV, many wonder, is this a continuation of Francis' legacy, or the dawn of a subtle but decisive change? Could the appointment of Monsignor Renzo Pegoraro as president of the Pontifical Academy for Life be a strategic bridge between past approaches and future directions? Is the new pope signaling unity over upheaval, or quietly steering toward reform? Pope Leo XIV steps into a church still navigating the complex legacy of Pope Francis, who championed pastoral outreach and reform yet often sparked internal tension. Pegoraro's appointment, coming so soon after the leadership of Archbishop Paglia, invites reflection. Known for a more measured and diplomatic approach, Pegoraro may embody the new pope's vision to honor continuity while avoiding rupture. In Catholic tradition, leadership transitions often balance respect for heritage with the need for renewal. Scripture offers insight in Ecclesiastes 3 verse 1, "For everything there is a season, and a time for every matter under heaven." Perhaps Pope Leo XIV is choosing the season of cautious progression, embracing incremental change that safeguards unity within the Church's diverse body. Pegoraro's role may therefore be less about radical reform and more about steady stewardship. This signals a desire for healing and cohesion, aiming to rebuild trust while quietly addressing sensitive issues behind the scenes. As Pegoraro begins his presidency, the faithful watch closely. Will this be a new chapter of cautious restoration, or the calm before a profound transformation? Stay tuned for number 9. Number 9. Are a church divided? The stakes have never been higher. This isn't just about policies, it's about souls. At a time when faith and doctrine are tested more fiercely than ever, Monsignor Renzo Pegoraro takes the helm amid a church deeply divided. How will Pegoraro navigate the sharp fault lines between traditionalists longing to preserve Catholic orthodoxy and progressives advocating for adaptation in a rapidly changing world? Can he unify these forces, or will the tension intensify? The Church today faces unprecedented challenges. Beyond theological debate, it confronts real questions about what it means to uphold human dignity amid technological revolutions, transhumanism, artificial intelligence in medicine, and legalized euthanasia. Pegoraro's leadership at the Pontifical Academy for Life places him squarely at the crossroads of Catholic identity and moral clarity. For many, the Church is a spiritual refuge resisting the culture of death that threatens to erode the sanctity of life. Yet others see an urgent call to rethink bioethics in light of new scientific possibilities. Historically, the Church's magisterium has always acted as a moral compass, drawing from scripture and tradition to guide the faithful through cultural upheaval. The challenge now is whether Pegoraro can uphold this role with clarity and compassion. Scripture reminds us in Romans 12 verse 18, "If it is possible, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone." The stakes are no longer abstract, they shape the spiritual well-being of millions worldwide. How Pegoraro steers this vital dialogue could either bridge the divide or deepen it. As the Vatican's moral compass points into uncharted territory, the question remains, will this new era be one of healing or fracture? Watch for number 10. Number 10. What lies ahead? The burden of moral leadership. One man. One mission. One question, will he defend life? The world now turns its eyes to Monsignor Renzo Pegoraro, who carries the heavy responsibility of leading the Pontifical Academy for Life at a time when life itself is under profound ethical scrutiny. Will Pegoraro reaffirm the Academy's original mission rooted in defending the sacredness of human life, or will he allow it to evolve under the immense pressures of modern science and societal change? What path will he carve in this critical moment? Since its founding, the Pontifical Academy for Life has been a beacon of moral clarity, defending life from conception to natural death. Pegoraro steps into this role amid challenges never imagined by his predecessors: transhumanism, AI-driven healthcare, legalized assisted death, all of which test the Church's timeless teachings. His appointment by Pope Leo XIV is not merely administrative. It is a summons to spiritual and ethical leadership. Pegoraro must balance compassion with conviction, wisdom with courage. The Academy's influence reaches beyond Vatican walls. It shapes global conversations about what it means to be truly human in an age of rapid technological change. Scripture reminds us in Jeremiah 1 verse 7, "I have appointed you to uproot and tear down, to destroy and overthrow, to build and to plant." This powerful calling reflects the dual burden Pegoraro faces, to preserve what is sacred and to wisely guide the Church through new moral frontiers. As we watch this unfolding story, one question remains: how will Pegoraro define the Academy's mission in a world so hungry for moral certainty? What do you believe the Academy's mission should be today? Your thoughts, prayers, and reflections matter more than ever. The Church is not a museum of saints, it's a field hospital for the wounded. Will Monsignor Renzo Pegoraro lead the charge, or lose the way? Only time, prayer, and faith will tell. In a world where truth feels negotiable and dignity is often reduced to debate, the Church still dares to proclaim that life is sacred, every life, at every stage. As Monsignor Pegoraro takes up the mantle of leadership, will he embrace the Church's deep legacy of defending life, or will modern pressures reshape the mission of the Pontifical Academy for life forever? The Church has always been at the intersection of hope and hardship, confronting injustice, guiding the lost, and healing the wounded. From the blood of early martyrs to the moral battles of today, its witness to the sanctity of life has never been without cost. And now, Monsignor Renzo Pegoraro stands where saints and scholars have stood before, charged with shepherding one of the Church's most crucial moral institutions. The Academy is more than a think tank. It is a moral compass for the global Church, entrusted with translating timeless truth into modern courage. Pegoraro's leadership will be tested, not just by science, politics, or philosophy, but by his own fidelity to the gospel of life. In John 10 verse 11, Christ declares, "I am the good shepherd." The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. Will Pegoraro do the same? The decision lies ahead, and its ripple effects may shape how future generations understand life, death, and dignity itself. Subscribe for more deep dives into the living history of the Catholic Church. Like and share if you believe defending life is the mission of every age. Comment below, what do you believe the Academy's role should be in today's world?